Okay, the recess is over. We've resumed our meeting now, and Mr. Arnold, continue.
One more thing, I promise. Every year, Veolia's contract, we have to adjust based on the CPI. So whatever the CPI value comes out is, that's what we have to adjust their contract to. That's what it was negotiated as. The CPI this year is 8.1%. That basically means it's $121,000 increase in the Veolia contract, which is going to carry through for the life of the contract. So
Yeah, and the next one will be added onto that.
so
So it's cumulative. Yeah.
Right. So that affects the water and sewer rate. So I budget, when I look at my rates and I look at my budget, I just throw in a 3% number just to try to track it.
For projection purposes?
Yeah. So this really sent it for a whack. It whacked the water and sewer rates. So, I mean, part of the good news is that $120,000 is split between water and sewer, but it's still
going to affect the rates.
And it's just going to accumulate faster over the course of the next 18 years left on the contract. So that's something we're going to have to take a look at.
Well, the mayor's aware of this, I assume.
Yes. That's it.
Okay, any questions or any additional questions or comments
No.
this time? Okay. Continuing. Survey engineering, Mr. Oliver.
Before I talk about upcoming projects, I'll talk about what's currently going on, give you some updates on the Uptown Rotary. I think we met back in December, but the appraisals were completed, just compensation was determined for all the temporary and one permanent easements we need. Offer letters went out to the property owners. Monday night I was in front of Finance Committee to get the funds for the compensation.
$4,000 some odd dollars.
$4,040, which is about 5 times less than what it costs to get the appraisal work done. So that's annoying, but Finance Committee voted to move it to City Council. I believe it'll be on your agenda for the 21st meeting to keep the process rolling.
I think is the money going to be on Monday?
It should be on this Monday's actually.
Oh, this Monday's, okay.
Yeah, 6th.
Great, that's even better.
6th.
I'm sorry, the takings, so this 30-day period following the offer letters that we have to stick to in case property owners have questions or want to negotiate a different compensation. I guess what should be on your agenda for the 21st is the order of takings.
Yeah.
That's what for me, that's the important thing to keep their process going. The right-of-way issues for Mass DOT have to all be in place before they can go out to bid, which is tentatively scheduled for April 22nd, I believe. So that's the bid date on the project. So that's where we stand now. I've spoken to, I think the only people I spoke to was the American Legion. They had some questions, so they came in and talked to me about it. The Crystal Lake Spillway, we have received a grant for that. We've got Fuss and O'Neill under contract now to do that feasibility study for looking at the spillway. I don't believe they've gotten too much done at this point. They just got that project, but that will be ongoing. The pedestrian bridge over 140 for the bike trail, that's approaching the final 25% with Mass DOT. Once that's done, there'll be a design public hearing, which I believe is sometime in April, similar to when they did the Uptown Rotary. Although I think now we're out of COVID, so I don't know if there'll actually be, a public hearing meeting at some point. I'm sure I'll hear more about that. On the sludge landfill, when we last spoke, we had a meeting scheduled with MIPA to discuss the project with any concerned butters, citizens. That happened January 17th. The meeting was long, it was cold, there were lots of comments, lots of questions. There were 30 people that showed up for it, some from town, some from out of town. There were some good comments. There were a lot of information requested and asked for, all of which MIPA takes into account as they move forward. I do know DEP just issued their comments to MIPA regarding the project. there were, they have some comments, there's nothing, earth-shattering on the project because we've been working with them on it up to this point. But that process is moving forward, and then I know our permit process with DEP, we found out will at some point involve meeting the public with DEP as well, so there'd probably be more comment from the public. So that's an ongoing process, a lot of moving parts at the moment for that.
So what's next?
Next for them, NEPA will make a decision on whether or not they feel the project should be subject to submitting an environmental impact report, which is a much more comprehensive look or report to the state, to the NEPA unit for the project. And essentially, if they don't decide it, we'll get a certificate saying no EIR is required, and then we can complete the process with DEP. If they require an EIR, the process with DEP will essentially be put on hold until the EIR is reviewed and vetted, and that would add months and months and lots of additional costs to the project.
Does our engineering reports on these various topics address the likelihood of that being necessary, or is?
It's completely up to NEPA. If they look for more information, our consultants will provide it. If it goes to an EIR, our consultant, we may look outside, I don't know, our consultant might not be fully qualified. We'd have to talk to them.
Yeah.
In my experience, sometimes on bigger, more controversial projects, you look to a consultant that's their experience. So that's down the road. I'm hoping we don't have to go that route, but we'll know more in the.
What's their NEPA's timeframe?
That's coming up. I forget when their decision date is. It's probably within the next 30 days. And then the EIR process will take time if that's where it goes. But keeping my fingers crossed, hoping we don't get to that point. Which is unfortunate because the DEP has been so involved in the project design and in all the permitting we have to do. That one state agency would kind of go over the head of another when DEP is tasked with protecting the environment. So I find it unfortunate, but that's the system.
It's the process.
Yeah. Yep. So those are my updates on that. As far as future projects, things I'd like to really get going on in this next fiscal year, we have the Mill Street Bridge, which has kind of been hanging out there for a while. It's in poor condition according to Mass DOT. So I think the way I'd like to approach it is at some point we have to get a consultant on board to look at exactly what we have to do. And then it would be my preference to get it on the tip list at some point, so we need a designer at that point. So I'm hoping to look at it, evaluate what the needs are for that, whether it's a repair or a full replacement of the structure, and then work towards getting on the tip list and get that process rolling. So at some point I'll similar to Dane, I'll include it with my budget as the funding for the engineering work, as to get it rolling, and then at some point, if it's not budgeted, I'll be looking for those funds at some point.
Which bridge? Where's the location of it on Mill Street? Is it on the kind of by the horseshoe?
If you're driving towards Walmart on Timpani, take a left.
Left,
Yeah,
right there, like by the horseshoe club.
Yep.
Horseshoe club, yeah, that's what I thought.
Yep. So that's one. The other is the 2A68 intersection. I know we had looked at a roundabout at one point. That isn't going to move forward due to the need for land takings. So at some point, I know Chris Coughlin worked with Trevor Beauregard about a MassWorks grant, and the plans had been revised to basically give, rather than a roundabout, to change the geometry with less land taking, to make that so we get better truck turning movements, to make it basically compliant with truck turns in that intersection. So that's another project I'd like to, it's been on the shelf for a little while, I'd like to also maybe get that one on the tip list.
What's the problem we're trying to solve with that?
Well, currently,
Or
if
is
you're.
that a solution looking for a problem?
No, there's definitely a problem, truck turns.
Okay, so it's a truck turning.
Yeah, I mean, the geometry of the intersection as it exists, if a truck is turning right, off of 68 onto West Broadway, coming in this direction, you've seen the signposts on the corner, yeah, you can see the tracks in the snow now. If a truck driver comes along who's not familiar with that intersection, they never leave themselves enough room. You have to swing in the two oncoming lanes of
You have to start
traffic.
in the pass-through lane and go into the right lane?
Yeah, so unless there's room, it's a mess. The lights need to eventually, the masts, everything needs to be redone, it's all, we need pedestrian crossing on all, on all four sides, which we don't currently have. So it's another prime one to get on the tip list. So the plans, they're not quite up to 25%, but that's one we could easily jump back on, so it's a good candidate. Some work's already been done on it, so.
For those looking, the tip list is a Mass Highway Department list for funding?
Yes, the Transportation Improvement Project is what it stands for. And again, they take years to get it done, but it's something we can live with, but it needs to be fixed at some point. So,
Yeah, for example, the Uptown Rotary is a tip project.
and it's been years in the making.
Yeah.
Yep. So if we can get them on and move them along, it just helps our case getting sooner rather than later, but typically later into projects.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm looking at currently.
Okay. No, questions, comments?
No, just the West Broadway 68 intersection, obviously, have expressed, concerns from people that work by about especially the pedestrian crossing.
Yeah.
So glad to hear it's on at least on the list of things that.
Yeah, it's on my radar.
Yeah, that's great, thank you.
Okay, next was Conservation Commission. We did get correspondence from Ms. Sophie Doro indicating that there was nothing new for her to offer. I had suggested to her that in the event that there wasn't anything, she could provide a report in lieu of her appearance, and that if we could include that correspondence, that email in the records of the meeting, that'd be helpful. Okay, Councilor request.
I have none.
I have nothing new.
Wow. Motion to adjourn.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Meeting stands adjourned.